What better time to make a tier list than on literally day one of a global launch of a game that literally nobody else got to play because there was never a beta, Japanese only beta, none of that. We are all literally going in this blind, but thankfully I spent the time to go through each of these characters individually and figure out what really makes these characters tick and what makes them good individually. So we're going to cover that in today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Let me know in the comments down below what you think are the best 3 characters. A few, I gotta just throw this out there, a few really quick qualifiers. If you are gonna base your entire premise around the tier list, maybe don't. Get what you want, get what's gonna keep you playing, gonna be most enjoyable for you, all that stuff. Next qualifier, we looked at these characters naked. And I mean naked. And what I mean by that is these characters have a couple of things that I did not consider. 2 things most importantly. So firstly, when I was going through these characters, I decided, and we'll do this eventually, but for this video and for the previous one in which I gave you guys the top characters to choose with your 5-star selector, I did not consider duplicates. And the reason why is because, again, we're going to cover that in a separate video, but I just kind of felt like with it being day one, unless you're like whaling and stuff, you may get like a duplicate on something in which you could make the decision if you think that's the right thing to do, whether it's between your 5-star selector or, you know, potentially pulling more for them or keeping a reroll, what have you. But I didn't consider these too much because there's kind of a lot to this, and this is obviously going to greatly impact the characters. It may shake up the list. I'll go through that over the course of the next couple of days and see how much that truly makes a difference. We also did not consider the literal best possible weapons for the characters. I thought this one was another thing that it was probably best to kind of ignore, because while I can point you in the direction of the best possible weapon, that's its own thing, right? Like, it's an entirely different weapon or different thing you have to pull for. And so, for example, the characters could also be and will be much better if they've got the dedicated weapon. So he's like, with this, Reno's going to get extra ice damage, crit or ultimate charge rate, like things like that. So like, obviously he's going to be much better. So couple of qualifiers out of the way. Like I said, I wanted to cover these characters literally in their most basic state. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm really excited about this. And again, my opinion, you may agree, you may not agree. That's fine. No toxicity, please. Tier lists get really crazy. All right, so should we start with Kaiju number 8? We'll save him and Reno for last. We'll save him and Reno for last. So Rin is number 1 on our list, and the fun thing about Rin is that she is actually an AoE farmer. That is what she does. Like, quite literally, we're gonna pull her up here. Quite literally, everything she does is all AoE, right? So she's an attacker. Her max attack is solid as well. So she's got this here. Each time this unit attacks a kaiju, applies a damage dealt increase to this unit, max stack of 5 times, and then deal AoE hit to all enemies. Damage there, 44% of the follow-up, which is actually, I think, unless barring SRs anyway, she, I think, was the only SR or SSR character, or 5-star characters, I should say, that had a follow-up AoE. Anyway, the ultimate AoE here, after attacking, each time this unit destroys a plate, advances the unit's next action order as well. So keep that in mind too. Another AoE here, but this one I think is a single. Yeah, that one is a single. Each time she defeats a kaiju, she gets an ultimate gauge up. So you see how she kind of just loops? Ultimate gauge starts at 60, so she's supposed to go out there and basically just farm content for you. That's what she is. And so, I mean, this is a single player game. So, I mean, if I'm being honest, you can make a pretty strong argument for her to be quite literally one of the best characters in the game because of the dedicated focus, right? She's going to go out there. She's going to throw the ultimate. She's going to get the attack increases from the passive. She's going to loop. She's going to get the extra ultimate. She's going to keep going. Everything she's doing aside from the basic is a multi-hit. She's just going to keep going. She's got a solid attack. If you pair her with other characters can also help increase her damage or debuff the enemy like a Kikoru, then she's going to obviously be much better. So, I think on merit, you may see that be less valuable in single enemy stages, of course, right? But outside of that, like if you needed to farm a specific item or whatever it is, I don't know exactly what you need to be farming right now anyway, to be honest. But if there's a dedicated farming focus, you can have a pretty strong argument. So she's like a B+ to me, but I'll say this is where you need to be listening and not just watching the end. I'll say for now, in general, B tier. But in terms of other content farming, she could shoot all the way up to S because, like I said, just the specific focus. All right, so Isao. Isao is, he's fun. So I see that this broke, so I don't know why this broke, but hopefully it fixes. No. Okay, let me fix that really quick. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, like I was saying, she could be here or she could shoot all the way up to S. I didn't realize I wasn't actually recording that. Anyway, so Isao is interesting because he is somebody that has a very specific role. He is out there to put up shields, and he also helps the survivability on the rest of your characters as a result. He's a defense-based damage dealer. His ultimate will hit pretty hard as it scales off of defense. He has a number of defense increasing abilities, and also I believe when allies with shields get hit, he also gets defense up. So very specific playstyle. He's also got this effect that he also starts with extra defense there. He's got the effect in here where effect resistance goes up, so that's solid, of course. Applies damage taken reduction plus 10% to all allies as well. And then his dedicated weapon also does something similar, but again, we're not really too much considering that. I'm actually curious because I just flat out don't know what his dupes do. Recovers the unit's HP. That's great. I in my video I talked about how he didn't have healing. Recovers the unit's HP. Of course all he does is healing. Of course he's healing. He's doing more things. Anyway, very dedicated playstyle. So, long story short, he is somebody that, again, could go very highly on the list or very lowly on the list because of what you need. And this is something that we'll find out when we come back and revise this list. But I'm going to rank him favorably because he is the only SSR that does anywhere near what he does. Quite literally, every other character on this list is designed to do damage in some capacity, and he's the only one that's like, I can hit you pretty hard, but I'm more of like a defense type. He's not really a support type because there is technically a dedicated support type, so there's that, but he is a support type. Anyway, so I'm going to rank him pretty favorably because of that as a result. So let's go back over to our list, and we're going to rank Isao as, he's another guy I think could be kind of like A- area. I mean, no, I'm going to put him in B. I don't know if that's favorable or not, but I'm going to put him in B. That's probably appropriate. All right, so next up, we're going to move on, and we're going to go to Kikoru Shinomiya. So Kikoru is interesting because everybody's interesting, apparently. But Kikoru is interesting particularly because she was the only SSR that did what she does, which is she's able to do that defense down debuff, which is obviously going to be huge for the output of damage for the rest of your team. She's got this tip-top shape stacking effect. A lot of these characters have like a specific type of passive effect that they trigger and then can stack 3 to 5 times. It's very prescribed, I guess, for lack of a better term. But with her version of it, she gets an attack increase and critical damage increase. So the only other thing you're kind of looking for is like crit rate or something like that, which I don't believe that she had anywhere in here. Yeah, she doesn't have crit rate, which is a little bit of a negative, unless there's a support character that can pick it up for her. That's a little bit of a negative. Crit damage is great regardless, but you'd like to have just more likelihood. Otherwise, maybe it would be good if she was a multi-target. She's just a single-target character, but I mean, that's perfectly fine because she's going to hit those single targets really hard. So anyway, also right here, if she has 3 stacks, she does the defense down debuff. She also has right here on the special multi-hits on the adjacent target. So I guess I said she's single target only. She does have an adjacent hit there. So that's another thing. Ultimate gauge starts at 60, so she's close to starting with that ultimate debuff. And it's pretty easy to get these stacks. Her entire kit revolves around it after activating skills other than the ultimate. So you can trigger the other 3 skills and you would get a stack. So pretty easy to get. So ultimate starts at plus 60. If tip-top shape is at 1 or more stack, the unit's effect hit rate goes up by 30%. And then when attacking a kaiju that has 50% or less remaining HP, the combat skill damage goes up as well. So the combat skill will do extra damage if the enemy is at 50% or less. I don't personally love the like dedicated nature of this, like combat is cool and all because it's going to also let her do the extra damage to the adjacent target, which would help her obviously get the kills in and all that. And then you do more follow-ups. So there's like I think there's a very particular playstyle she has, but she's going to have such high attack, and she's already got a very high attack stat in the first place. And so she's going to be hitting extremely hard after she gets built up. And that's a theme for a lot of these characters. A lot of them just need to be built up so much. So we're going to actually place her into the A tier. And I may have to start moving these around because I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm going to place a few more into A tier at this point. So we're going to place her there as well, just for the strong, it broke again, single target DPS. Something funky going on with OBS and it keeps breaking, my bad. But it's fixed now. All right. So moving on from there, we are going to talk about Ashiro. So Ashiro is one that I haven't really talked a ton about so far throughout my videos. So Ashiro's got this thing where she's now built off of focus. So when focus is at max stack, applies critical rate plus 100% for one turn to this unit. Applying this buff based on the focus consumes all focuses. So 100% crit rate up. And she's designed to just absolutely try to mow down an enemy. After attacking with her ultimate, applies damage taken reduction to this unit, so she takes less damage afterwards. Applies damage dealt plus 9.6% for 2 turns, and a normal attack damage multiplier plus 16% for 2 turns. I didn't really love how her combat skill is just flat as a buffing skill. So she goes from combat into the basic, which does this attack to a single target. And then again, to trigger the focus, after using normal attack or combat skill, applies 1 stack of focus. So that's not the worst thing because she's still triggering it or getting close to triggering it. But yeah, I didn't really love that dedicated playstyle like that. But the good news is, and this is one of the things that really fixes this unit, at the start of the battle, applies 1 stack of focus. This fixes this character. Because I was going to say, she's going to turn around and get that ultimate and only have 2 stacks. This makes her have that 3rd stack off the rip. And so she's immediately able to get that 100 into the ultimate. Now, if the ultimate hit just a tick harder, like if the ultimate hit just a tick harder, it would be awesome. Also, after defeating a kaiju with her ultimate, she gets an extra 50 gauge here for the ultimate. So she's able to almost loop the ultimates. Not really, but that's what she's trying to do. But the good news is, when she's basically on full HP, above 80%, she gets an attack increase. So if you're able to put her with characters that can debuff the enemy or buff her attack further, Ashio will hit really hard. I don't remember her having a particularly high attack stat. It's 1266. So it's a high number. It may be like top 3 in the game. So I have to go back and confirm, but it's right there. Top 3, top 4. She's also one of the slower characters, actually. Maybe because that big ass gun she likes to carry around. Yeah, like she's interesting. She will do good damage when it's her turn to do good damage. She just doesn't compare to like Kaiju No. 8, who is the peak damage dealer in this game. So there's that. And maybe if she had like a big like AoE blast damage again, that would maybe be useful. But she just, again, she's going from that special into the normal, into the ultimate. That's the play style for her. She's cool and all. I think I placed her in B tier. I'm pretty sure that's where I'm placing her. So we'll do that. And did it break again? Indeed it did. All good. We are perfectly fine. So next up is I think we will actually cover Gen. You know, I was just thinking more about Ashiro, and I'm actually gonna move her to A because she's a boss killer. That's what she's, and that's in universe. That's a theme for her in the series. She's trying to play like her first big appearance in the series, where she comes in and just one shots, right? The 100% crit gain is crit rate is crazy. I don't know if there's a character that increases crit damage, but that may be the missing link. If she's able to get a crit damage increase somewhere, she may be like, I don't want to say the highest, but like right up there at the top, right? She's only really like rivaled by what? Kaiju No. 8 at that point, maybe Kikoru with buffs, right? So I gotta move her higher just because she's gonna do so much damage. She's just like the 100% is pretty nuts, right? But All right, let's move on from there. Like I said, we're going to talk about Gen. And Gen is fun. Gen is also fun. And the reason why is because Gen is a character that is completely and utterly dedicated on action advancing and exposing cores. He's also got like this dual type damage as well, which is really, really strong, of course, in this game. So let's talk about him. So Gen, 107 speed, one of the higher numbers. But for the skills, when this unit's ultimate gauge is less than 50, he applies a speed up to himself. But when it's above 50, he gets extra damage. That's the base passive. He also automatically always has a 20% ultimate damage increase. When attacking a core exposed kaiju, he does 20% more damage. When attacking a kaiju to become core exposed. So when he makes a kaiju core exposed by his combat skill, advances his action order. So he's able to go faster, right, with that. And so speaking of his skills, the combat skill deals damage and slash and shot damage to the kaiju, and then also does the same to adjacent targets. So that's another thing on him. He is also hitting multi-targets on several attacks, while also doing multi-elemental, multi-type damage. So slash and shot, and he's hitting the primary and adjacent. And so the modifiers are low, but he's always got the ultimate damage up, yes. But when he's attacking the enemy that has a core exposed, he'll do 20% more. And then also, when he makes their core exposed, which he's going to be more likely to do because he's got more coverage, he is able to advance and then just keep looping on the enemy. The ultimate is, the follow-up here, just 66%. That's pretty standard. The ultimate is the same, except stronger than the combat skill. It's quite literally the same thing. So, very quick and easy kit. Very quick and easy kit. So when he's close to getting the ultimate as well, he gets the extra damage increase. But when he's not close, he gets the speed increase, which is funny because that just means that he's going to go faster, get closer to the ultimate. That's the point, right? So he's like, not any of these characters are like super confusing or anything like that, but he is like super straightforward. I like him a lot. Because, especially, again, the dual coverage, there's not a lot of those characters. In fact, the only other character I saw was Ihiru, I believe. That's got, like, 2 types on there. With Ihiru had actually an element on there. Well, maybe Reno has as well because the ice stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty good. But, again, some enemies will just be weak to anything. So, that's another thing. So, anyway, I am going to place him. And we are going to wind up placing him in... Like I said earlier, too many characters are going to wind up in A tier. Because S tier is reserved. S tier is reserved. So I've got to move some stuff around. I have no choice. S tier is reserved. Maybe that's what it'll be. We'll come back to it. All right, so let's get out of here. Let's go to Hoshina. Okay, so Hoshina. Hoshina is a crit demon. that's what Hoshina is. He is a crit monster. So Hoshina is a fast attacker with self buffs, tornado push, and good crit scaling. So let's see what he has here. So after defeating a kaiju, applies attack increase for 2 turns to this unit. After activating combat skill, applies fierce. Fierce gives him 11% crit rate and 16% crit damage. Right? The ultimate. Attack increases crit by 16%. Deals slash damage to a single kaiju, but while in the fierce state, advances this unit's next action order. Yeah, he's kind of nuts, man. Fast and critical. He's kind of nuts. The combat skill doesn't really do anything except for the fact that, I don't know, it's an AoE. He hits everybody. So it's not an adjacent hit. It's just a flat out everybody, like Rin earlier. And then the skills here. When attacking miniature kaiju, he gets the extra damage increased by 15%. After activating the ultimate, he gets plus 15% speed for 1 turn. And at the start of the battle, applies fierce. That is the same passive skill to this unit. That last part doesn't need to be there. It doesn't. He gets a fierce to start the fight, basically. So he doesn't have to worry about using the combat skill first. So if for whatever reason you wanted to, you could start with something else. Maybe there's another character that can help him open with an ultimate or something. I don't really see a huge need to start with it because you'd want to use your combat anyway. After activating normal attack, Fierce will be removed. So this one's kind of whatever then, right? Because what you're gonna do here is you're gonna start with Fierce, and then throw it to the ultimate, or to the normal, I mean, and then it'll be removed. And then after that, you'll go double attack, get another Fierce, because Fierce doesn't stack. So yeah, so unless you can throw your ultimate, all you're really getting out of this extra passive of Fierce is a stronger ultimate on a single target. Or I keep saying ultimate, I'm tired. A single target hit, the normal attack. You're going to get a stronger one of those, right? So, I mean, okay. Like, it's not crazy. I guess maybe if it was a miniature kaiju, that Fierce would be nice because you're getting the extra crit from the Fierce. And then if it's a miniature kaiju, that normal attack would do really good damage with the critical rate, especially if it lands a crit, right? But yeah, he's kind of. But I do like the idea that they had with him, though, which was my point. I do like the idea that they had, making him like I said, a fast crit guy that fits in with his in-universe. So Reno. So Reno is next. And to be honest, Reno is another A tier character. Yeah. I think Reno is A tier at base, right? At base. So Reno, I'm pretty sure he's got the two types. You can see the two icons, shot and ice. So the extra coverage is helpful. Like I mentioned earlier, if a character's got that, that's pretty huge. He is the only one here that's elemental out of all these characters, and he's literally dropped today. Technically they're all elemental, I guess. But like, an actual element, ice, fire, something, So that's I guess a thing. But the way he plays is he's all about freezing. I know, typical Reno, right? Ice crystal follow-up synergy and AoE chip damage. He does a lot of like consistent chip damage. His utility plus scaling on allies' attacks makes him stronger in long fights as well, as what I have listed as notes. So after activating his combat skill, follow-up skill, or ultimate against a kaiju in Ice Crystal state, he applies Ice Crystal for 2 turns to the adjacent kaiju. The Ice Crystal effect, after an ally attacks, deals ice damage equal to 21% of the applier's attack. Applier's attack could mean one of two things, by the way. It could mean the character that just did the attack or Reno's attack. I'd assume that it's not Reno's attack because it would say, I guess, this character's attack. So I'll treat it as the other. So that's huge. That's huge. Giving them 2 turns of that ice crystal stacks, like 2 of them, right? 2 turns, or one of them for 2 turns, I guess is what it is. So that's pretty solid. So after they get hit, they take extra damage, right? His follow-up is actually a little stronger than the others too. Before attacking, he applies a crit rate plus 15% for 2 turns to this unit on the ultimate. 2 turns, so you get the extra turn on viability on that. Deals shot and ice damage equal to 163 of this unit's attack to a single kaiju. Deals shot and ice damage to 81% of this unit's attack to an adjacent kaiju. After attacking, has a 65% base chance to apply freeze for 1 turn to the target. Freeze delays the target's next action by 30%. So they've got multiple like ice-related effects here. They've got freeze. They've got the ice crystal. I think there's one more too. After the turn arrives, takes ice additional damage. So they take a hit anyway. They take another hit anyway. So wait a minute. Hold on. So one thing I didn't consider until now is, well, do they... With freeze, since it's a different skill, are they going to take 2 hits from freeze and an ice crystal? If they take 2 hits, he's an S tier character. I didn't consider that because they both say the same thing. If he's doing 2 hits, he's an S tier character. Ice break. After attacking This does a single damage. After attacking, applies Ice Crystal for 2 turns. This is the same effect as a passive, so yeah, it's the same effect. So they're going to get that more chip damage there. So you see chip damage on everything. After activating combat skill, has a 50% fixed chance of SP +1. That's huge for him. At the start of a wave, applies Ice Crystal. That is the same as the effect. How many of these can do damage at once? Because can they have more than one Ice Crystal? This is one of the things I need to get in and see. Because he could theoretically drop 3 different versions of this on one enemy at a time. Because you get the freeze and then 2 Ice Crystals, right? When attacking a kaiju in Ice Crystal state, this unit's damage dealt is plus 18%. I don't think this stacks. It says 2 turns, but I don't think it stacks. Because typically, as we saw earlier, it would say so. But I do think that if they've got an Ice Crystal, that should work with freeze. Because freeze is its own thing. So, yeah. I'm going to assume that works that way and place him into S tier. And it wasn't like he was bad in the first place. That wasn't what I was trying to say. I just thought that Kaiju number 8 himself is just so definitively number 1 in the game right now, in my opinion. So there's that. But so maybe I make a S plus. Did we just make S plus? No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right, right? We don't need to. Okay, whatever. I'll do Z. How about Z? Let's name it. Let's just let's go God tier. Boom. And in my opinion, Kaiju number 8 is number 1. So, Kaiju number 8 is, he's crazy. I'm actually curious about his dupes. Like, I need to go through the dupes on all the characters. Ultimate gauge goes up after using a normal attack. After turn to rise, randomly removes one of the unit's debuffs. Huh. Recovers the unit's HP. I like how these characters, none of them have their own healing, but I guess they start picking up healing with dupes. At the start of the battle, applies 1 stack of Fighting Spirit and max stack count +2. Holy crap! That dupe is insane. Oh my god. That last dupe is crazy. I like how they have the fortitude 9.8 there. Okay. Kaiju number 8. Cannot hold the aptitudes and the weapons. I think it's called that. So it's called something else. So as a result, they compensated by giving him the highest stats in the game, like across the board. I think these are all, if not the highest, they're all like top 5. But that attack is the highest number. That speed, I believe, is also the highest number. So they basically compensated. Now, skills. I was marking out about the Fighting Spirit because, I don't know, Fighting Spirit stacks up to 5 already. It triggers on basically everything, right? Normal attack, combat skill, or after receiving a hit. So, just existing, breathing. He gets 3% extra attack. And this is just base. This is not even the maxed out version, right? 3% extra attack, 3% extra damage, and then 6% ultimate damage multiplier. And it, again, already has 5 stacks. The ultimate. Before attacking, he gets a 32% crit damage buff. No, blunt damage buff. And a 44% crit damage buff for 2 turns. The special here. When attacking mini kaiju, 50% or less HP, inflicts definite defeat on the target. Definite defeat. Mini kaiju are just deleted. Just delete it. Now, it's specific to mini kaiju, but still, just delete it. Just delete it. After attacking, has a 100% base chance to apply a taunt to the target. Applies defense up to this unit as well. So he puts a taunt on the enemy. Huge. That's really good. So they can't hide behind another taunt or something like that. He gets a 27% permanent attack increase, and for 3 turns, gets a 35% defense increase at the start of the battle. He gets a permanent 19% crit rate bonus. A permanent ultimate damage up by 15%. Like, nobody else we've reviewed have got anything close to this. Like literally, none of the other characters we reviewed get anything close to this stuff. Just flat out, just permanent buffs. Like, 35%. Just defense. That's defense, but still. 27 just permanently, right? And then he also gets a permanent plus 16 speed. just because after activating combat skill applies crit rate. So after using the crit rate, he also gets, or the combat skill, he gets 2 turns of 15% more crit rate, which is great because he has crit damage, right? This guy is so funny because he is quite literally, I think, so far and away the best character in this game. Why? Because he doesn't have a weakness. He's not a slow character. He's got good defense, got good bulk. He's got those stats that are good in the first place, but he's got those the extra defense there. He's got damage up, blunt damage up, crit damage up, crit rate up. They glazed him like they did. I'm not even mad at it. He's Kaiju number 8, but they glazed him like crazy. So I think he's like so far and away. But remember, circle back to the beginning of the video where I said weapons. Actually, do weapons also have? Thank God these things don't have dupes. I didn't even consider that. Thank God they don't have dupes. Anyway, weapons add a lot to the characters, and he can't hold one. So that's why they glazed him so much, like I said. And he's also Kaiju number 8. So there's that. There's also a Kafka character, but like, who cares, right? Anyway, that is the definitive tier list. Kaiju number 8, God tier. I think Reno S. If I had to make any movements, it would be to move Kikoru up, actually. I think if I did anything, I'm moving Kikoru up because of the defense increase. And that would be what I would call it. So, again, like I said earlier, she wound up pretty low. Ren did wind up pretty low in S tier or C tier. But I think there's a lot of room for her to go up. But you kind of see why as we go through this. You can argue she's better than Gen or maybe Hoshina. But you kind of see why as we go through this. Like, this shifts just so much. Because these characters are just good. And so I think that when it comes down to it, ultimately, it's a lot of single target, big bosses. And so she's devalued in that content. But otherwise, she's really good. So she's like super niche, right? But you know what she is? She's a good character because you can deploy 4. She's a really good character to have on your team to help you clear those waves faster. And that's another underrated part about this is these characters work in tandem together. So while, our boy is so good, and that also it adds more value to Kikoru too, because the defense down is so strong, and it can help all these other characters, right? So I moved Kikoru up to S. It broke again, but I'll fix it. Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. That was pretty fun to do. I think that looks pretty good, to be honest. I do think that looks pretty good. What do you guys think? I got to thinking about it a little more, and I moved Isao up because I actually think he's insane with Kaiju number 8. I think they may be on the team together as the best team in the game because at worst he makes Kaiju more survivable, which is probably a huge deal. So you could probably shoot Isao up the list if he is indeed a part of the best team in this game. And another thing that I wanted to consider, because there's just a lot that goes into this, is for Gen. I think Gen is actually really strong. I considered putting him down in B, but I think he's really strong. Like I was mentioning earlier, 4 characters in one is kind of crazy. 4 characters in one team, is kind of crazy. Having somebody that's like a dedicated character to help you break faster is huge. And that's kind of what he is, especially with the dual coverages. You could also cover a lot of ground depending on the content with him and maybe Reno. I think he's really strong. But yeah, I think that's mostly it. Again, Isao, you could shoot him up the list depending on what you do with. He is, out of all these characters, I think he is the most dependent on the other characters around him, because he's just not. He's just made as a support character, basically. He's a defensive support character, so he's here to make the other guys look good and keep them survivable. So, with that being the case, let me know what you guys think down below.